Hello there, Dave here, and before we get to today's episode about how video games shaped our taste in music, I would like to say thank you to the wonderful patrons who help support the show. These personal heroes of mine are Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast crew, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Ficori, Jill, Jeff, formerly Jerf, Kieran, Soccer, ZNA, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt, aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Randall, Jake Martin, Jenny E., Kurt Mattis, and many more. Once again, these fine folks have chosen to support the show over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/RealDaveJackson. And their support is much appreciated. You can be like them too. Join the VIP for as little as $2 per month. And with all that being said, let's get to the episode. Hello everybody, my name is Dave Jackson, and you're listening to Tales from the Backlog. This is a video games review podcast where most of the time I'm joined by a guest to bring a game out of the backlog, play it, and discuss. But that's not what's happening today. We've got a topic discussion episode today about how gaming has influenced our music tastes. But before we get too far into the topic, let me introduce the two wonderful guests on today's episode. The first guest, first time appearing on the show, formerly of the Video Game Lounge podcast, John Haig. John, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. How's it going, Dave?
It's going great, and it's good to meet you. Good to finally have you on the show. We've been talking for a while. You're a frequent participant in the Top 3 podcast, Top 3s. We love your contributions there, so it's good to have you on.
Good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And we're also joined today by one of the hosts of List Off podcast, returning after a little while, but many-time guest on the show, Ryan Juengling. Ryan, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Good to be here, as always. I always appreciate you having me on. Hi, John, my arch nemesis over there. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, we've met in person.
We have. We've met.
Yeah.
We're friends
IRL.
We're
You
real
guys
friends.
took your rivalry to the next level.
That's right. I said, meet me outside. I did not think he would.
Yeah. So it's good to have the both of you on today. We were talking, this conversation sprung up out of a conversation in the Discord server. I think maybe it was either me or maybe it was you, John. I don't remember. Someone brought up like top 3 songs from Rock Band that you then went on to like love the band or something like that.
Yeah.
And this topic just sprung out of that as we all kind of were doing our top 3s and realized, hey, playing video games has kind of changed the way that I listen to music, or at least influenced a little bit. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how video games have shaped our taste in music with regards to, of course, licensed, like, quote, real music from Tony Hawk and Rock Band and stuff like that. But also, you know, video game soundtracks are a big staple of the stuff that I listen to outside of playing games. So I'm excited to dig into this and try and, first of all, talk about the stuff that we like, of course, the stuff that influenced us, but also try and drill down into why. Why did video games just kind of connect straight into my brain and make me love some of this music? So I thought we could get started by just, before we talk about the games that influence our music taste, we'd talk about our music taste in general. So, Ryan, I'll kick to you first. I swear to God, Ryan, if you say I like a little bit of everything, I'm going to shut this fucking thing down. But what kind of music do you like?
I listen to a little bit of everything, Dave. All right, show's over.
Have a good one, guys.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Thanks for listening. Go to Patreon, everybody.
No, I'm a child of the 80s. I do flock towards a lot of 80s music. I like The Cure, but I love like 80s pop too. Tears for Fears, things like that. Was big into punk rock for a very long time. Grew up in the California Bay Area, and was into the punk scene there. A lot of hip hop as well, underground hip hop in my youth, like Living Legends, Hieroglyphics, Atmosphere. basically, if it was considered counterculture, I was pretty much on board with it. I thought I was a rebel from the jump. And currently I listen to a lot of pop radio music because that's what my son's really into. And when he's not in the car, I'm listening to podcasts. So
that's true.
When I do listen to music, it tends to be whatever my son wants to listen to.
Gotcha. Good father. All right, John, how about you?
I also listen to a little bit of everything.
I swear to
God damn it. We just went through this.
Unlike Ryan, I force my kid to listen to what I want to, which is good because he actually likes a lot of the same stuff I do. No, but I grew up with my parents were really big into classic rock, things like Aerosmith, Bon Jovi, OG Metallica, Hendrix, anything Clapton. I shifted very much towards blues once I heard Pride and Joy by Stevie Ray Vaughan, and he's my I'm going to say it, he's on my Mount Rushmore of guitar players. He's that damn good. It's very rare you see a guitar player like play guitar every time and afterwards that guitar needs a damn cigarette. And that's what Stevie Ray Vaughan does. Like, I'm serious.
Agreed.
And then once I kind of got into my adolescent, teenage years, it was a lot of stuff like Nirvana, Alice in Chains, kind of the grunge rock stuff. So yeah, I do listen to a little bit of everything. I also had a hip hop and R&B phase as well. I'll listen to just about anything, really.
You know what? Now that you guys say it, I guess I don't listen to everything, but I definitely would say that some of my favorites are metal. I'm a real metalhead. Pop punk, like that, like mid 90s to like mid 2000s era of pop punk was like, that was the shit when I was in high school. And like, I think we'll talk about it later, but like stuff that comes out or that you're surrounded by when you're at that age, when you're like really receptive to new stuff and just open to everything, catches on a little bit easier. But like, I still go back to that. Like when I listen to music on Spotify, which I don't all the time anymore because I have so many podcasts to listen to. We can fill up all of our spare stuff listening time with just the podcasts that people in our community are making. Just the indie video game podcast scene will fill up more than the time that you have available. But when I do listen to music, I would say punk, pop punk, metal, those are probably the biggest things. And hip hop too, like kind of absorbed a lot of that through the years. I would say those are the biggest things. And I think when we get into our examples here, that's going to be very well represented in the games that we talk about that introduced a lot of that music, but also just brought, maybe you were familiar with some of like the stuff that was on the radio, but a lot of the stuff we'll talk about brought up those more obscure bands that you had never heard to that point. So let's dive right into one of the most common ones that as we were making the notes here, I noticed like come up separately in just about everybody's notes. And it's one of those ones that I think people click on this episode and say, okay, well, they're going to talk about Guitar Hero and Rock Band. So let's talk about Guitar Hero and Rock Band. I got on with Guitar Hero 1. Did you guys start right from the beginning of that whole phase?
Not me. I really didn't get on till they started introducing the other peripherals, like the drums, the mics, when you could really, it became much more of a party game at that point, and that's kind of when I was exposed to it. Yeah.
I was playing Guitar Hero 1 and 2 in college, like in the dorms. It was those two games, and then this was still PS2 era, so we were doing also, like, not related, but we were also doing Tekken Tag Tournament with, like, the 4-player, like, multi-tap.
Oh, yeah.
So if it wasn't Guitar Hero, it was us beating the shit out of one another in Tekken. But it was mostly Guitar Hero. And sometimes beating the shit out of one another with the guitars.
That's right. Yeah, of course. Guitar Hero 1 came out in 2005. Guitar Hero 2 came out in 2006. And then in 2007, Rock Band came out. And then I think for the next 5 years, there were like 30 Guitar Hero and or Rock Band games.
Yeah.
It was,
and
it
don't
was
forget
a
Rocksmith
thing.
too.
Yeah. So like, this is where I think a lot of my introduction to metal came in. Is like, before this, I was a big fan of like Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne and Metallica. Like, one of my college roommates was a big Metallica fan. So I was introduced to that through like, you know, various things. And then like Guitar Hero came in and kind of eased me into a lot of other stuff that I would not have gotten into just generally, right? Like, for a while, I was one of those people that was like, I like metal, but they have to be like singing. It has to be clean vocals for me to do it. And then I played Guitar Hero. I think it was in Guitar Hero 2, that Lamb of God song was on there. And I was like, oh, this fucks. This is awesome. Okay, I like Lamb of God now. And because I like Lamb of God, here's these other 1,000 bands that are now available to me, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Guitar Hero 1 and 2 were games that like, I may have heard songs from like some of the bands that were in the set list, but it also opened the door for like additional songs from bands that I already knew. Like I had only at the time that Guitar Hero 1 came out, like I knew a little bit of Alice in Chains, but I had never heard of the song Them Bones, and that song rocks, and I loved it in Guitar Hero 1. Guitar Hero 2 had a couple other ones. Like I knew of Foo Fighters, but like when Monkey Wrench came on, I was like, damn, this song's pretty cool. I love this song. It's pretty cool. So having an avenue to further expand, like, you know, how many songs are in your like set list that you know from bands that you kind of maybe already knew a song or two or an album or two was pretty fun.
Yeah, it kind of had that effect on me in the later games. I have to say, like, Paramore is a band I probably would not have listened to, but I played their songs so many times in Guitar Hero that I was like, damn, this kind of slaps, you know?
Yeah,
Maybe I should start listening to more Paramore. So I did, and similar effect with Guitar Hero 3 and, like, Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah. Really,
that was kind of my first intro into that band, and I ended up listening to them and then got into Them Crooked Vultures because 2 of the members formed that band, and... So it kind of does set you down this path where, like you said, you know, Lamb of God, right, opened you up to a whole new genre of music. And it's like you discover that one band in one of these games, and all of a sudden it just like takes you down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny story, I guess, connected with Rock Band. When I was in high school, I had a big afro. It was something to behold. Yeah, I've shared it in the Discord server before.
Yeah.
So I had this big afro. Me and Aaron, one of the co-hosts on Top 3, he had a big afro too. We were very cool. Very cool. People always told me I looked like the singer from Coheed and Cambria. And I was like 17, so I was like, nah, fuck that guy. I had the look first or something like that. I was like, nah, I'm never listening to Coheed and Cambria ever. Fuck that band. No. And then I played A Favor House Atlantic on Rock Band, and I was like, oh, this is the best song I've ever heard. This song's incredible. That guy with the afro, he's cool now. I'm not mad at him anymore. So I don't know, there's a lot of things that just like, especially because I was 17 when Rock Band or Guitar Hero came out, and 18 when Guitar Hero 2 came out. And I was still in that age where like, I just make up dumb reasons to not like stuff, you know, just being a shitty teenager.
Yeah.
And Guitar Hero and Rock Band were so instrumental at just like, because those walls you build up are super flimsy. So they just busted those things right down. It's like, oh no, Coheed, they're great. What was I thinking? What was wrong with me? And
this guy could totally steal my look.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Maybe I did inadvertently look kind of like him. It's not his fault.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just like, it just, you know, you play it with a group of friends when you're drinking or something, and you're like, you know what? Yeah, Paramore's all right. I don't know why I was ever like, you know, I'll never listen to Paramore. They're great.
For sure. I have to say, I really liked Muse because of Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
And then for a while, they were known as, you know, the Twilight Band, right? Because that song was like their song was used in the Twilight movie. And I was like, I kind of formed the opposite wall where I was like, well, I don't care. I knew him before Twilight. Like, I still liked Muse, you know?
Yeah.
Like that won't ruin it for me. Yeah.
Do you guys remember an internet like it was a website that's kind of like oh my god, I'm blanking on the name. Anyway, I digress. It was a website where you'd like punch in goofy shit and a guy would like say shit back to you, and it was called Strong Bad, and he had a song remember Strong Bad and his song Trogdor on Guitar Hero 2.
Of course. You draw an S, you draw another S.
Yeah, that was fun when Guitar Hero started to bring in stuff like that, like Trogdor. They brought in Dragon Force, which I think like Dragon Force was kind of like a novelty before they went into Guitar Hero. I think it was Guitar Hero 3. And then when they went on there, they like exploded because everyone was like, what is this song?
Yeah.
So it was cool. I think I was doing some research through there, and I think there were like lots and lots of bands who like, you know, semi-popular, maybe like got a major record deal or something, but they're not like big time or anything. And then you get a song on Guitar Hero, especially in those like first 3 or 4 games, or on Rock Band, and like it just popped off.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think Dragon Force is probably the best example of that, right?
Yeah.
Like millions of people knew that song just because seeing people play it on the early days of the internet and like being in awe of it. Even if you weren't able to unlock it yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like you still knew it existed and it was next to impossible to play.
Yeah. People are still streaming. Like they're doing wild shit now. It's like I got 100% on expert on Through the Fire and Flames at like 3 times speed or something.
On a potato,
you can mod the speed now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I played it on a potato.
Yeah. What are some other like bands or songs that Guitar Hero or Rock Band introduced you guys to?
Guitar Hero introduced me to a band called the Exies, and their song "Hey You" was just like one of my favorite songs off Guitar Hero 1. Like I had never heard it before, and it was a fucking banger, man. It was one of those ones where I would play the game and like I'm headbanging. I don't care if I'm like by myself, but like from there I just dovetailed into other Exies stuff and other bands. Like it was fun. It was a good ass song.
Yeah, it was. I remember that one. One of those for me was what was it called? Carry Me Home by The Living End. Yeah. It starts out with like this just wild guitar solo intro. And then The Living End was kind of like this like punk rock rockabilly mix up. And it was like nothing I'd ever heard before, but it was still like very much into like that punk rock feel. So it was easy for me to slide right into it. But I was in college. And so like that would be the time when it was like, okay, I heard this song on Guitar Hero. It's awesome. So I download all their albums and listen to that for like a month straight. And yeah, definitely got me into that band.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the other ones I named prior, Paramore, Muse, Queens of the Stone Age, but also it just kind of gave credibility to those exact things you were saying, Dave, like the bands you kind of pushed to the side. I was into like punk rock, right? So there were bands like Blink-182 and this more poppy punk where I was just kind of like, no, like that's not as cool as the stuff I listen to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then, you open yourself up to playing those songs and interacting with it in a new way. And all of a sudden it's like, you know, like maybe I was too hard on Blink-182.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know for me, Guitar Hero 1, like at the time that game came out, I had only known of Incubus through their Morning View album, and the song Stellar is on Guitar Hero 1. So I actually was able to go back and listen to older Incubus stuff, and I was like, fuck yeah, this stuff rocks, dude.
Do you guys want to feel old? Incubus just released a new recording of Morning View to celebrate its 20th anniversary.
Yeah. Nice. Morning View Taylor's version. Hell yeah. Those games were really fun. Like I think that's part of it is like, I don't know, I think that was for a lot of people maybe like your first rhythm game or something. Like it was probably the first one I played.
I mean, Parappa the Rapper for me. But
if you're an OG, yeah. But I'm not. I never played that. So I think that was like the first rhythm game I played, and not only like opening me up to all the music, because it's a really good rhythm game. And I played bass guitar. I mean, I technically, I guess I still know how to play, but I played a lot back then. And so just taking something I already liked, making it into a video game, and then exposing me to all of these other bands. Like the first time I heard Megadeth was on Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
I had previously only known of Megadeth because of Dave Mustaine formerly being in Metallica. That was all I knew. And then it was like, you play Hangar 18, you're like, oh, this fucks. Like, I got to listen to Megadeth now. This is great. Now that album, Rust in Peace, is one of my favorites ever. And it's, I mean, maybe I would have found it later, but Guitar Hero got me there much sooner.
Yeah. The social aspect of just Guitar Hero 2, where, Guitar Hero also is, okay, you and a buddy or a bunch of people can just switch off, on set list or songs or whatever. So it became a communal thing. Like, I can remember, I'm old enough to remember back in the day when you'd get like 16 computers all hooked up and do like, LAN parties and shit like that, where, you could get 8 or 10 or 12 people, at least we used to, in the dorm, and just swap out, who was playing guitar, depending on how they did, loser, has to give up the guitar or something like that, was kind of how we did it. So
I think that's really why these songs stick with us, right? I mean, how many years later, when was the last time you played a Guitar Hero and you still know these songs? You still think of it. It's because you had these memories with your friends, like playing it, and it really cemented that as a time and place. For everyone, probably everyone here, just from listening to you guys, I could comfortably say that, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was 2006 was my freshman year in college. So like right when Guitar Hero's exploding, we move into the dorm rooms and everyone's like, maybe a little bit nervous about like making friends at college or whatever. And so they told us at orientation, like, leave your dorm door open so people can come hang out. If, you're watching something or doing something they like, just leave your door open. It's much easier to meet people. And immediately it was like, oh, people's doors are open and there's Guitar Hero happening. And then it's like, you take a peek in, you're like, oh shit, what is that? Let me, oh, you're playing Nirvana? Like, let me get a try on that. And then boom, like decades long friendships are born from that. That's my experience with it. So the social aspect was super strong. And then Rock Band became the party game. That was our party game.
When you could, when they introduced the microphone and then you'd have people singing.
Yeah.
Like most of the time it was questionably singing. And, most of the time it was like drunk karaoke. But yeah, that definitely became the party game. You'd have a guy who doesn't have any rhythm trying to do the drums, which was hard as shit. Those drums are hard.
Yeah.
But the guitars were fun, and I like the buttons better on the guitar, on the Rock Band guitar. There were square buttons.
I always liked the Guitar Hero guitar better. I always felt like the Rock Band one was a little less forgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is where I'm a bit out of my league. I'm not sure I ever played a Rock Band. When I did get into the other instruments, it's when Guitar Hero introduced them, because maybe Guitar Hero, gave these pop punk bands a second chance, but they didn't give Rock Band a chance. I planted my flag with this bad boy right here.
Ryan, so that shit's worth hundreds of dollars now, Ryan. Ryan's got one of those guitars.
Yeah,
and
the
it
Les
says Gibson
Paul
on it.
I got the Les Paul, man.
Damn, that's
for the Wii.
Collector's item.
The Rock Band guitars were square, and they were kind of like more like like a real guitar fret, and that's why I kind of like that better. As someone who has had a guitar for 20 years.
Yeah.
I haven't played for 20 years. I've just had one.
As somebody who has no musical inclination when it comes to playing an instrument, I really appreciate Guitar Hero's guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. We've got a community response. We have a lot of community responses for this episode.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel strongly about this, but when there's one that like directly fits into this these sections here, we split them up. So the one community response about Guitar Hero and Rock Band is from Thrak, one of our friends from the 3DO Experience podcast, former guest on this show. Thrak says the two series that influenced my music taste were Sonic and Guitar Hero 3. Before that, I was kind of getting into music, but didn't have too much guidance. Guitar Hero 3's set list got me into classic rock in such a big way.
Hell yeah. Thrak knows what's up.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like Guitar Hero 1 and 2 had a lot more like they had like some really famous stuff, but a lot more like kind of experimental or like stuff on the edges. And then Guitar Hero 3 was like, oh, this is really popular now. Okay, we're getting like Aerosmith and AC/DC and all of these like big bands. And then eventually they had like their own games.
Yeah, they also got Slash, Tom Morello, and Bret Michaels to do motion capture for the game. Yeah.
Also, speaking of Sonic soundtracks, it's the best part of any Sonic game. So
agreed. Yeah.
Well, you could pick their Thrak.
Exactly. Yeah. And we'll leave it at that. But thank you, Thrak. We appreciate that. So yeah, easy to say that Guitar Hero and Rock Band had a big influence. Let's move on to another set of games that had a big influence on us. So the next grouping of games that I wanted to talk about, because again, it came up in just about everybody's individual notes, are sports games. And we're still in like that licensed music conversation here. But I think that we cannot start the sports game section talking about anything other than Tony Hawk. So let's talk Tony Hawk. I was in on Tony Hawk from the first game. I played it on N64. Again, it was like one of those things that just hit at the perfect time, the absolute perfect time, like for the age I was, the consoles I had, everything. I was primed, and I was also, again, ready to just have my ears blown out by all that sweet, sweet punk rock in the first Tony Hawk game, especially.
Yeah. Tony Hawk is, amazing games. I actually started with Tony Hawk 2 because a buddy of mine had it, and then I went back and played Tony Hawk 1 prior to the release of Tony Hawk 3. But Tony Hawk, man, killer soundtracks on both of those first two games. For me, my go-to song was Blood Brothers by Papa Roach. And like, I knew, everyone knows Last Resort, the Cut My Life into Pieces, blah, blah, blah. But like Blood Brothers was on that first album and got me to actually go buy that CD. It was like one of the first CDs I bought with my own money, at the tender age of 14 or something. But there was an R&B/rap track on there called The High and Mighty by B-Boy Document 99 featuring Mos Def that has like the most killer R&B beat. I love it. And like those were the two songs I played on Tony Hawk 2. And then going back and playing Tony Hawk 1, Euro Barge by the Vandals was a banger. I love that song. And then Police Truck,
man, for sure.
Police Truck by the Dead Kennedys, man. Oh my God.
I have such a strong memory of Police Truck playing because I had the N64 version of Tony Hawk 1.
Oh, gotcha.
Which, for those who don't know the difference, the N64 had less memory to work with, so the songs were cut. So you got like a 30 or 45 second cut of the song. So it would be like one verse, one chorus, the guitar solo from Police Truck, and then it would just loop to the beginning again.
That's too funny. Yeah. I had no idea, man.
Yeah. So that it's still, even to this day, I've listened to that song hundreds of times and I'm still expecting it to go the way it went in Tony Hawk. But I'm like, oh, right, there's a second verse and there's all this other stuff in the song. But yeah, that's one of my big memories. That, and of course, Superman by Goldfinger, and Jerry was a race car driver. That introduced me to Primus at the age of 11 or whatever.
Yeah,
great age for Primus.
It's the perfect age for Primus.
Exactly.
What known as Big Brown Beaver.
Yep.
Anyway, this is like, so I'm kind of with you. I was the age, and I was like a skater, not a very good one, but many of my friends were much better than I was. But this was like the perfect game at the perfect moment for me, for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and it's also, I already listened to a lot of this music, so it just like cemented that. It was like, like you do love punk rock and you do listen to good music, and now other people knew about it. So when I got to talk about the Vandals, like people would actually know who the heck I was talking about now because they played Tony Hawk. So I love the soundtracks on Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, and maybe not as influential when it comes to finding like new music for me, but it was definitely influential in that like it's almost like a video game saying like, no, you're on a good path when it comes to music. You know?
Yeah.
I think one thing that those soundtracks don't get enough credit for is how eclectic they are. Like those soundtracks have like a good mixture of, like, one of my examples was an R&B song. There was like a grunge rock, kind of a classic rock song. Like they really started to incorporate songs from different genres, not so much like country, but like there was a couple of different, you know, genres represented that you could be like, okay, cool, I dig this one song, and stuff like that. So
yeah, they definitely like
really
had
cool
songs you would hear on the radio mixed with songs you would never hear on the radio, right? And I think that's really cool that it kind of, even if it was, you know, you listened to Goldfinger, like stuff was there for you for your enjoyment, and then if you listen to like these lesser known bands, you know, stuff was there for you also. So
yeah, it was like, Tony, was it 2 or 3 that had Public Enemy on it? Because the first game was just all punk rock basically, and then it was like, and Primus, of course, because how the fuck do you categorize Primus? But
bass.
Even within even within that, it was like you had the more like radio friendly like Goldfinger, and then you had some of those other songs on there, like there's a song called Screamer that is like, you would never hear that on the radio. And it's like, I'm 11 listening to that and being like, oh, music can sound like this. Okay, I had no idea.
That's cool.
Yeah, super cool. And like, I think that's one of those things where it's like, I was young enough that everything on the Tony Hawk 1 soundtrack I was hearing for the first time. And it was like immediately like, oh, the skateboarding is really fun. The game is really fun. And those songs just worm their way into your head because you love the game so much. It's in my case.
Man, that's really cool to hear. I enjoy hearing that. Like, I'm a little older, like not to age myself here, but hearing like that it helped build your taste in music is just rad, dude. Yeah. Like I love to hear stuff like that. What a cool game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like, the only other things that I was like consciously choosing to listen to at that age was the same time that Eminem got big. And I liked Eminem, and like Blink-182. I liked the two of them, but they were on the radio, and like Will Smith, I suppose, like stuff like that. It was just like you kind of just pick up stuff.
With it.
Dave was getting jiggy with it.
I was, yeah. In 5th grade.
With his fro.
Heck yeah. But then like...
Hey, no hate here, man. That's cool.
Then like Tony Hawk comes out and it's just like, oh, there's this entire other thing. And because I like the game so much, I like basically all of those songs, where if you would have presented like the Dead Kennedys to me outside of the context of that game at that age, very little chance I would have liked it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's something magical about it.
Yeah, the game forces you to listen to it. If you like the game and you like what you're playing, like eventually it will worm its way into your mind.
Exactly. Yeah.
Little anecdote on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. There's a song on there that is called 96 Quite Bitter Beans by the band CKY.
Uh-huh.
CKY stands for Can't Kill Yourself, which was the precursor to Jackass, the TV show, like Bam Margera's like thing. And so that got me to dovetail into doing stupid shit as a teenager. Like we created our own little Jackass troupe for a little while that did stupid shit. It was fun. It was fun.
Pretty unfortunate that my brain works this way, but I'm sure someone should or is doing a podcast where they just interview people about all the times they tried to copy Jackass when they were teenagers.
Yeah.
And just people telling stories about the dumb stunts they tried.
There are endless guests for that show,
exactly.
I'm sure of it.
Because everyone did it. Everyone tried something.
Everyone did.
Yeah. So yeah, there's the Tony Hawk section. Super influential. Ryan, you got some other sports games that you brought. What did you bring?
Yeah, I just felt like they should be brought up just because they meant something to me. SSX Tricky had a pretty cool soundtrack.
Yeah.
A lot of it, the majority of it was like techno, a lot of drum and bass and stuff like that. But I was never, even if I listened to hip hop, I was never big on Run DMC. Like I knew they did that song with Aerosmith. but for some reason I never went back to them, right? When I got into the hip hop, it was like the 90s and never really went back to them. And then every time you bust off like the Tricky combo, right? They kick in that It's Tricky by Run DMC. And I was like, dang, this kind of sounds great. Like
it's
maybe
cool.
I should go back and listen to this. So I did. It actually sent me down like a Run DMC rabbit hole. So thanks to that. But I'm also like a big fan of chiptunes, and I feel like a huge reason is many 80s video games, but I do want to shout out Punch-Out because I think Punch-Out has some bangers on it, and it's soundtracks like that and countless other retro games that I can attribute to, me being into chiptunes now and really enjoying those.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm too young for chiptunes. I'm kidding.
You're never too young for chiptunes.
I definitely have like chiptune stuff that I want to talk about a little bit later, but let's finish up the sports game section. We'll swing around back to chiptunes.
Well, that's why I brought up Punch-Out. It's a sports game.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sports game. Yeah.
Yeah. I've only played like very limited amounts of Punch-Out, and I'm very bad at it. I heard it's good, especially the Wii version always looked cool, but
the Wii version's good. The Wii version is definitely good, but the NES one for me is where it's at.
Nice. John and I both wrote down in the notes that we picked up a lot of stuff from Madden and MLB The Show for you. So,
yeah,
John, tell me about some stuff from those games that you got introduced to.
Yeah, MLB The Show started in, I think it was 06 was the first one, but there were some banger songs on some of the later releases. Like 2009 had a song called Safe to Say by a band called Valencia, which was just like this punk kind of like rocky song that was not necessarily their cover song, but it was one that was like high up on the set list. That was always like second or third to play, but not a song I would normally listen to. But after hearing it so many times in the road to the show mode, I was like, actually, you know what? This is kind of a banger. And one of the things that I love about MLB The Show is when you're doing like the created player modes, and you're doing like batting practice or pitching practice or something, they play the soundtrack of the game, but the sound design actually has it so that you hear it as if it were playing through the stadium speakers. And so cool. when you're taking like batting practice or something, you'll hear the soundtrack, but it's as if, you're at the ballpark or something. So hearing it over and over again, trying to hit, 98 mile an hour fastballs, like it was a cool song. Yeah. And again, especially again in these later ones, like I go back to saying they're really eclectic. It's a lot of different genres, especially in the more recent, like I'd say the last like 7 or 8 years of MLB The Show have literally a song for almost every genre. Like there's a techno, there's R&B, there's rock, different kinds of rock. Like it's a lot of stuff, and it's really, really good. It's all really good.
That's cool. I never played any The Show. I never had a PlayStation like during the years when I wanted to play it. And then like now that I have a PlayStation, I don't really want to play sports games very often. Like when I play sports games, they're not the big licensed ones. Like I play Super Mega Baseball and stuff like that. I fucking love Super Mega Baseball.
Yeah, for sure.
But maybe I should try. I don't know if The Show's good. Like maybe I just assumed because like Madden is not great anymore that the other ones suck too. I don't know.
The Show is typically well reviewed and pretty well regarded.
That's
but
good.
I'm kind of like you. Like if I'm going to sit down and play a video game, it's probably not going to be a sports game.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean,
right, for sure.
Stuff like Rocket League. Well, Rocket League has some good songs in it, but it's always changing. It's hard to keep up with it. But Madden was real big for me because I started playing Madden back with Madden 02, the one with Eddie George on the cover, I think.
That'd be Ray Lewis.
Ray Lewis was 02.
Eddie George was 01.
The year before. Yeah. Okay. So it was 01. Yeah. And then Madden got me to go further than Tony Hawk did. So like Tony Hawk was a couple years before that, and it introduced me to all those punk bands, but I didn't ask my parents for a Dead Kennedys CD for Christmas or anything like that. But Madden pushed me to actually go start buying these. So Madden, I think I looked it up. It's Madden 04. Yeah. The one with Mike Vick on the cover.
Mike Vick, baby. Yeah.
The greatest athlete in the history of the Madden franchise is 04 Mike Vick. And that soundtrack had a bunch of stuff that really spoke to me. That was when Are You Gonna Be My Girl by Jet popped off. It was on that soundtrack. There was stuff by Outkast and The Roots. There was Blink-182, like after they got sad. And then they had, on that soundtrack was the song Way Away by Yellowcard. And that song blew me away when I heard it. And
like way away.
Way away blew me way away, away from here. In fact, so I love that song so much. When we went on a trip, we went to New York City and we went to the Tower Records store, and I bought 2 CDs at the store. I still remember this. I bought the Blizzard of Oz by Ozzy Osbourne because I had just read a book in my English class about Ozzy, and I picked up that Yellowcard CD because I loved that song so much. And I was like, I need to hear other things by this band. And then there's this cute girl that rode the bus with me and she liked Yellowcard. So that just got, you know how that goes. Yellowcard was my favorite band for a while there.
Yeah. So, I love Yellowcard too.
Yeah. So that was the thing that actually got me to like start buying CDs of the bands instead of just being like, oh, that song was in Tony Hawk. And then when I stopped playing Tony Hawk, I stopped listening to that song, even though I liked them all. I picked them all back up later, but that like got me to start buying CDs and exploring. And then it would be like, you go to the store and they're like, oh, you like this Yellowcard CD? Try this Green Day CD. And then I love Green Day. And again, this is stuff that would have happened at some point, but it started with Madden 04 because I loved Madden so much back then. A lot of those songs just became big parts of my life too.
That's cool. Gotcha. Hearing both you guys talk about it, I think it's really cool because Madden is not a game that people would typically, attribute to their musical taste, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like 100%. It gets pushed to the side in a lot of ways, especially from people who are, as deep into gaming as we are. And it deserves some credit sometimes, right? Like it did some good things for sure.
Yeah. Those early aughts of Maddens when they were actually still trying to change the game each year and it was still good. Yeah. Like Madden 06 for me had a real banger. And piggybacking off of what Dave said, I actually went out and got the CD. Madden 06 had a song by Disturbed called 10,000 Fists. That is a fucking banger, dude. You want to get hyped playing Madden? Go listen to 10,000 Fists, man. That's a good ass song.
That was another one of those bands that I thought I was too cool for Disturbed because I had discovered I was like, oh, I like Megadeth now. I don't need to listen to Disturbed.
Oh, yeah.
And then they had a song on Guitar Hero 3 and I was like, wait, no, this song rules. What's wrong with me? Like, come on, Dave, get your shit together.
Yeah. Those middle 03, I would say, to 08, 09 Madden, really, all those soundtracks just absolutely slap. They're so good.
Yeah.
And the games actually were good to play too.
I was just going to say that. And it doesn't hurt that I feel like that's the golden age for Madden. And I've been thinking about this, because I feel very strongly that was the best era of Madden. But do I feel that because the games were actually better than they are now? Or was it because I was, 14 to 22 during that time? And that because of that, and I was really into football, way more than I am now, even though I'm into football. But I was big into football back then. I don't know if it's something changing about me over time or if that actually was the golden age of Madden,
I mean, I'd probably agree with it being the golden age of Madden, but it's a similar situation, right? I might have the same bias. It just was that time in my life for me. And I think that's valid. I think that can completely be what it was. I don't want to play a Madden now. I have no interest in it. It could be too because they were trying back then. They were innovating every year. They were trying new things, but it could also very well be that just football was a bigger part of my life back then.
Yeah. I tried the new Madden 23, I guess, or 24. One of them went on Game Pass a while ago, and I tried it out. And I don't think it's very fun, but there is a lot of really impressive stuff in there. It's just not what I want. It's the same reason I don't play NBA 2K anymore. Like they went so far 2K. On the side of realism that the games became too difficult to like really enjoy. Especially with 2K. 2K fucked itself over in my opinion. Yeah. But
dude, NBA Live for life. NBA Live was the shit in the early aughts, man.
That's part of the problem, right? There's no NBA Live anymore. There's no NFL 2K anymore. It's just, one company controls the whole damn thing, and they just, they don't have to innovate because why would they?
You want to play a football game? You're going to buy our football game.
Yeah. You're going to buy our game, or you're going to play just some knockoff. Like, I'm sure some indie developers are making a football game with that's good, but
bring back Blitz, man. Blitz was fucking awesome.
But that's the thing, there wasn't that big of a gap between, I mean, there was a gap, but it wasn't huge between Blitz and Madden because Madden was a little more arcadey, right? Like it wasn't, you could rip off 90-yard runs or, these 70-yard passes, and like, I haven't played a modern Madden, but I can guarantee you're probably not pulling that off with the frequency that you used to be able to do in Madden.
You'd be surprised, though. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Madden's just been a roster update for the last 15 years. You're paying $70 for just updated rosters.
It's also microtransaction really hell in Madden these days.
Bummer.
Yep. So, that's, I think one of the common things here, at least with my list, is stuff that I played that had this type of like licensed music between the ages of, 11 to 18. And so you're taking in music, I think, from other sources, of course, like stuff your friends like, maybe stuff your parents like, stuff you hear on the radio. During that time was when Napster like became big. So it was just like, we'll go to this website.
LimeWire.
They have 30 MP3 files. I'll just download all of them and listen to them. I don't know what they are, but it's free music. So I'm just going to try it. But I think like if you're playing a bunch of video games and they have that licensed music in it, I think something about like that age makes you just more open to, hearing it. Whereas like now, I'll listen to Rocket League, music when I'm sitting in the lobby or something. And like, I like it. It sounds good. I'll never listen to it outside of the game or anything like that. But back then, like, I just feel like you're more open to it.
I think that like that 11 to like 18 is like, those are impressionable years. Like those are formative years where like you're just a sponge. You're just going to soak up kind of whatever is around you. Dave, let me ask you this, as you alluded to earlier, that you kind of played bass or used to play bass.
Yeah.
As I'm just thinking about this now. I also found that like these games, Madden, MLB The Show, Tony Hawk, I was drawn to some of these songs too, because I also, this was, the early years of the internet, 04, 05, 06, somewhere in there. I started to try to learn how to play some of these on guitar. Like, not like Dragon Force, get fucked, Herman Lee. But like trying to play some of these songs was kind of fun too, and got me to like further drawn into these. Did you have any of that, like being a bass player?
Probably not until Guitar Hero. Well, that was when it kind of got like more serious. I started to play more, I guess, then too. But
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I learned how to play the songs on that Yellow Card album and other stuff that Are You Gonna Be My Girl by Jet has like a really catchy bass line in it. I definitely learned how to play that. So actually, I think you're right. Like, I don't know that it was like, I like this song or I like these songs from Madden, so I'm going to learn all of them. But it was like, I first got a bass in maybe like 2004, and that was around the time I was playing that game. I was like, well, this song has like a really great bass line. I bet I could learn that in, a month or so. So I think so.
Right on.
Yeah. We've got a bunch of responses from the community here about sports games. So let's run through them with your help, if you guys are willing.
Yes, sir.
And I'll get us started with Dave C., who's one of the patrons of the show. Thank you, Dave. Dave says Madden title screen music were always bangers. Correct. That's the thing about the Madden songs, too. Like, you get little clips during games, but it's mostly when you're just in menus or In the old, like 04, 05 era of Madden, they had training camp and you could like do drills and shit. They play the music during that too. But yeah. So Dave says, yeah, Madden title screen music was always a banger, and Halo ODST's soundtrack turned me on to jazz. I never played Halo ODST. I didn't know it was jazzy.
I know I wouldn't have considered it being jazzy, but I'm also not familiar with it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, I'll take the next one. This is from Chris N. Thank you so much for your patronage, Chris. And he goes on to say, Tony Hawk for sure shaped my musical taste in middle school / high school. Yes, definitely. That's me saying that. He goes on to say, really got me into punk rock. Police Truck, Dead Kennedys, Bad Religion, You, Superman, Goldfinger, The Suicide Machines, New Girl. All good picks. All good picks for sure.
I love that Suicide Machines song. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next is the best name in Discord, Snacktaku, who is a patron. Thank you for your patronage. I discovered a lot of cool bands like Foles, Kasabian, Keen, Muse, etc. through FIFA. That's another great sports game.
Yeah. Another one where I feel like a lot of people would probably agree the golden age of FIFA was about 15 years ago.
Yeah, no doubt.
I never played FIFA myself. My roommates like to play it, but I tried it a couple times. I was like, this is way harder than Madden. I'm not playing this anymore. So, but I don't doubt that it had great music, just like the rest of the sports games of that era. Next is Darth Egg, one of our patrons. Thank you, Darth Egg. They say SmackDown versus Raw games got me into early 2000s rock. Got me listening to bands like 3 Days Grace, Chevelle, Nonpoint, Rise Against, and Disturbed, just to name a few. Hell yeah.
Dude, SmackDown vs. Raw was an incredible series. Especially like mid to late aughts, like really good games and really stellar soundtracks.
Yeah.
Really got me into the walkout music from wrestlers.
Just the concept of it, yeah.
Some of them have some really good walkout music, I'll say that. You know? It's really catchy stuff, man. I'll take the next one. It is from Jake, a patron. Thank you, Jake. And host of the Pre-Order Bonus podcast. He says, THPS2, which of course is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, Superman by Goldfinger, Can I Kick It? Yes, You Can, by A Tribe Called Quest. Very good picks, for sure.
Good song to just skate around to.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. 100%. Next is Chris R. He says, I found loads of new music through games, mostly sports, skate games, or racing games like Need for Speed series, Tony Hawk, and Forza. There was one song that immediately came to mind, though. There's an old Xbox game called Juice that had the song Between Us and Them by Moving Units. He says, I love that track and that album and eventually really came to love that style of garage rock, and that's never really changed.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I'm not familiar with that game or that song, but reading that reminded me of, I think it was Need for Speed Underground 2.
Dude,
had this Doors and Snoop Dogg remix.
Riders on the Storm. Hell yeah, dude.
That got me into both Snoop Dogg and the Doors separately just because that song was so good. I love that game too.
Dude, Need for Speed 2, Underground 2 was a banger game. Absolutely amazing.
And the last one is from Adam, aka Desba. Adam says, Mega Man got me leaning toward rock and metal as a kid. Tony Hawk Pro Skater pretty much solidified me as a rocker / hip-hopper for life.
So I think it's probably because of Metal Man and Rock Man for Mega.
That's probably true.
That's probably why. Yeah.
Other people played those games and got real big into grass or wood.
And Snake.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for those submissions. We've got a lot more. We just had a lot that directly fit into the sports games category. So we're going to take a little music break. When we come back, we'll talk about some other stuff, non-sports games, maybe some non-licensed music. So we talked about sports games, we talked Tony Hawk, we talked Rock Band, we got a lot of that licensed music out of the way, but the licensed music, the quote, the real music, the pop music, the stuff you might hear on the radio, the stuff on Spotify, that's not all that makes up at least my music taste. And that definitely not all that video games kind of informed as far as that goes. So let's talk about some other games that don't include licensed music. They're original soundtracks for these games that still influenced our music taste.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay, I'll go first. So I have on here GTA because I do think it deserves a shout out. We kind of talked about sports games and Guitar Hero and Rock Band specifically, but I think GTA, I know it's licensed, but it deserves to be mentioned in this space talking about game soundtracks. I mean, if you want to talk about variety and just good tracks all around, especially like the first GTA trilogy, right? GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas, they all rocked big time. As for non-licensed games, I know, John, you're going to echo this, but it's definitely The Last of Us. I love Gustavo Santaolalla.
And hell yeah.
Hades, for me, is one of probably my most listened to soundtracks. It's just full of good music and really good vocals and lyrics. Another one that is probably one of my most listened to is Doom, the soundtrack for Doom. I think that is like, if you ever want to get pumped, it's definitely the thing I listen to when I work out. Like, it's my go-to.
Yeah.
That Doom soundtrack. I can't think of anything better than that.
Yeah. When I work out, I usually listen to podcasts, but if I'm listening to music, it's very often the Metal Gear Rising Revengeance soundtrack. It's similar to Doom. It's super upbeat. It's very intense and it's very corny. And for some reason, I love that. But yeah, Hades and Doom are good shouts. Like, I like soundtracks that are original for the games, but really easy to map on to like my general music taste, right? Like, I love rock and metal, and so Hades and Doom just slot right in there. It's just, a lot of those songs, they just don't have vocals. That's the biggest difference for most of them.
Yeah.
The music is easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Desba kind of mentioned Mega Man. Mega Man's another big retro game that I can attribute to my liking towards chiptunes, right? Like, Bionic Commando had a good soundtrack for that too. I got really into soundtracks around the time of The Last of the Mohicans, actually. I felt like that soundtrack was just so good. And outside of that, I hadn't really listened to a ton of them, right? And then all of a sudden I started listening to a lot of video game soundtracks, and it kind of brought back that love for like orchestrated music that I didn't have for a really long time. I think Final Fantasy is a big series for that. I also think there are games out there like the Horizon games. I really like the soundtracks of Zero Dawn and Forbidden West. Both have really good soundtracks. And I mean, if you want to talk about living in a golden age for gaming, I think the orchestrated soundtracks that we are getting currently are up there on par with what you see in films, if not better than what you get in a lot of films.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Final Fantasy games for sure. Dave will probably echo this, but Final Fantasy X has a killer fucking soundtrack. And like, Into Xanarkin is like, that piano intro is just, oh my God, chef's kiss. Like, it's so good. All that orchestrated music. You mentioned Last of Us, like Gustavo, I'll shout out because my wife's also from Argentina. Gustavo's from Argentina. Like both of those soundtracks, and he also did the TV show as well. Just fucking phenomenal. The way that music is composed, that it can just elicit so many different types of feelings, whether you're sad or which you are a lot in The Last of Us, but also like there's happy music. There's like, oh shit, we're just got caught music. Like it's a bunch of cool stuff. I'll also shout out Bear McCreary. The God of War soundtracks are amazing. His stuff outside of video games, like he did The Walking Dead, he did Black Sails, Outlander, Battlestar Galactica. Like, he has done some other shit that's just really cool outside of video games, and I'll listen to a lot of his soundtracks because he's a phenomenal composer. I love pretty much everything that he's done. And I'll also shout out, I didn't write him in my notes, but Austin Winery is another guy. He did Assassin's Creed Syndicate and Journey and Abzu and a bunch of other, like, he's phenomenal. He's so good.
Good shout with Journey. Yeah. Ooh,
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah.
There's a lot of talent working in video game music these days. I mean, not that there hasn't always been a lot of talent, but yeah, it seems like, I don't know, it seems like basically every game that I play has an incredible soundtrack now. And I don't know if it's just like the technology's there for people to fully realize their vision for what they want a soundtrack to sound like. But yeah, it's always great. That kind of got me thinking, like, how many times I've listened to the Final Fantasy VII Remake soundtrack on Spotify. And like, I love the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, but I don't listen to that in my spare time. I don't listen to Star Wars OSTs, in my spare time, despite, I love those. And like, you catch me at the right moment, and just hearing one of those songs will make me cry because I have just so many memories associated with Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. But I think, at least for a lot of retro games, and then like Final Fantasy VII Remake is a remake of an older game, an older kind of philosophy of making video game soundtracks. I think like the focus on having like big catchy melodies, or like very prominent melodies in it, like as opposed to something like a Bear McCreary God of War soundtrack, where it's maybe reusing that one motif over and over again in different ways. But it's not like in Final Fantasy VII, where every character has their own theme, and then those themes are all used in a bunch of different ways. Or just like the battle music is really, it's got a very strong melody to it. Whereas I think, Ryan, you and I talked about it in the God of War Ragnarok episode we did, where it's like a lot of those soundtracks are good and they suit the game really well. And then I put the game down and I can't remember what anything sounds like from them.
Yeah.
Whereas, a Final Fantasy or a Mega Man, or like you were talking about with Punch-Out or something, like those basically had to have really strong melodies to them, because I don't think the technology could do a whole lot else,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Legend of Zelda, right? Like Koji Kondo, let's go.
Right.
If we were shouting out specific composers too, I want to give one to Grant Kirkhope, who did the Banjo-Kazooie games. I think he has a special taste. But I think that also falls into like what you get, right? And I do agree. If I listen to something outside of the media itself, I do tend to lean into those more repetitive melodies, right? Which is interesting. I'm not sure why, but like I would listen to a Legend of Zelda soundtrack, an earlier one, right, before I would go out and listen to Bear McCreary's God of War. Those are good songs front to back, but I think there is a benefit to having a theme or a melody that repeats, because it gets more ingrained with the emotion as you're playing the game, right?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Like, I think that just me listening to something like that, or like listening to the Mega Man 2 soundtrack while I'm driving in the car, that would have never happened when I was in high school. I was like, that sort of thing was just not part of my music taste. But having those memories associated with it, whether it's, playing through a level over and over again, struggling to get through a difficult part, or in the case of Final Fantasy, like you have a song associated with a story moment or a character that you really love, like To Xanarkand, or the opera scene in Final Fantasy VI. Like I've listened to that opera song in my car many times. And like, that's probably one of 2 opera songs that I could name off the top of my head. But, video games just, it pushes through. It's like, I'm going to watch a movie and they have an opera scene, I'll probably check out. But
for sure.
Final Fantasy VI, like straight to my heart,
It's interactive too. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. Especially in that one. Yeah.
I think some games, even if they don't have necessarily that repetitive melody, they benefit from having a unique sound. And I think The Last of Us is a really good example of that.
Yeah.
Like
sure.
Gustavo uses the Ron Rocco,
and it's like
a very unique sound to it, right? As an instrument.
It's an 8-string guitar that's basically, it's a mandolin, but the strings are in reverse.
That's so crazy.
I've done research. I'm sorry. I'm a nerd.
Nice. But it's like, even if you're not getting the same melody, right? You're getting the same sound. So it kind of burns into your mind a little more.
I'll shout out another one. The recent, semi-recent, like Tomb Raider reboot trilogy. Like, they did a lot of stuff with experimenting with different instruments, things that you wouldn't necessarily find, like in a regular orchestral, set. Those soundtracks are actually really good too. There's different themes and different styles within those games that are really, really good.
You kind of mentioned, Ryan, like soundtracks that you would listen to outside of the context of the game, but not necessarily like that super hooky melody driven thing. And I immediately thought of Tunic's soundtrack.
Dude, I was going to say Tunic. Yeah.
Really good, like electronic, like it's got a melody, but it repeats so much that it just kind of fades into the background of whatever you're doing. Like I listen to it at work all the time. It's a perfect thing for that. That's probably part of this too, is I found that if I need to concentrate at work, but I want to listen to something because I can't be alone with my own thoughts, video game music fills that void really well because it's basically built to be background music. And so, do that enough times and that becomes part of your taste. It becomes part of what you like.
Yeah, there's nothing like having to focus at work with a podcast on, and then you're like, I caught nothing at the last half hour of that podcast.
I caught nothing of that podcast, and my work is an absolute mess.
Right, exactly.
Tunic's a great one. Like the different themes for each area are really distinct, and they're really good. I'll shout out a game that has minimal like orchestral music, and it's a lot of music with lyrics, and it's mostly a cappella, but Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, all of the sea shanties are fucking awesome. And I've listened to just about all of them in my car multiple times.
Nice.
They're really fun.
Yeah, I didn't know how, like, it's easy to say, like, oh, well, of course, I played Tony Hawk, and then I was like, oh, Primus. Okay, I understand Primus. I can go listen to Primus now, because you need something to get you in the door with Primus, stuff like that. Or with in my case, with Lamb of God or something. You need something to help you get your foot in the door. But I was wondering how these other things connect, like the Final Fantasies and the Mega Man and, the Last of Us is another great shout. If that becomes stuff that you like to listen to outside of the context of the game, then I think it's fair to say that game has influenced what music you like. So it was interesting. Like I knew the first part of this episode would be easy to dig into why, because, it's not so different from just hearing something on the radio and, liking it. But a lot of this other stuff, like the opera, where also I'm going to have to, like any other situation, I'm going to have to make the conscious decision to either sit down and listen to some opera or go to an opera or something like that. But video games make that connection a lot easier. And I think like our connection with those interactive experiences, I think makes it easier. It makes it easier for me to internalize a story and like get emotion out of a story that way. And the music just kind of like slides right in there too. It's all part of that experience as much as the visuals are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, we have kind of like answered this question a couple of times throughout the episode in specific ways, but I wanted to just kind of summarize our thoughts before we run through the rest of the miscellaneous community submissions. Why do we think that video games have this power? Because if I were to, think about all the movies I've watched that have music in them, but they didn't influence me as much as video games do. I don't want to speak for you guys, but that's definitely the case with me, especially now. I can watch a movie and be like, wow, the score was great. And then I'll never think about it again after I'm, home from the movie theater. But video games have more of a lasting impact for me. So we wanted to just kind of maybe summarize some thoughts about why. So I will turn to one of you guys if you want to go first. Otherwise, I can go ahead.
Sure, I'll go first. I do want to say I was personally offended when you said that the Lord of the Rings soundtrack is not something that you listen to outside of it.
Yeah, I mean,
and it didn't resonate with you,
heart.
and you never think about it again.
Yeah. I love it with my whole heart. The Lord of the Rings soundtrack. It's just, I don't listen to it in the car.
I mean,
no,
I was offended when he said he doesn't listen to Star Wars. I mean, who doesn't listen to Duel of the Fates when they take a shit?
John Williams.
Only when I need a little help.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I mean, Dave, you've kind of been saying this throughout the episode, but I think one of the reasons video games have this power is it has a lot to do with when you experience it, right? You talk when we were talking about Madden, you said it was that time in your life. When we were talking about Tony Hawk, you said it was you were 11, right? And I think it just really depends when these games enter your life. And I think I think specifically for licensed music too, video games can be more effective because you are experiencing it as you listen to the music. I think of very few film soundtracks that have licensed music where I go, oh man, I'm going to buy that CD like that. Even when it's licensed music, right? And even if there's a song or two that gets me into it, it's rare that like the whole thing just gets me. But when you're playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater as a teenager for 40 freaking hours, right? 70 hours, dude, right? 100 something hours. Like these songs become a part of your life at that point. They're not just something you're listening to while you're watching a 2-hour movie. They're like a part of who you are. And I just think, especially being young, being a teenager, you're more impressionable. You have a more open mind to different types of music. It's the right song at the right time for a lot of these. For every new song or band I picked up from a GTA game too, there's a lot that I didn't pick up. So it's not always effective. It doesn't always have that effect, but sometimes it's that tune that you're looking for that makes you feel a certain way. And I don't think it's just because it was Tony Hawk or because it was Guitar Hero. I do think it's because we were all of a certain age when these games came out. I don't know. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 just re-released a few years ago. I don't know if it had that effect on people, that didn't experience the first game. They probably didn't go into it and like have this, I'm going to take all these bands out of it and go hunt them down and buy their CDs.
Yeah.
Right.
If they were a 35-year-old band playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 for the first time.
Like, wow. Suicidal tendencies. Awesome.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I definitely think video games as a medium, aside from all this, can also be more effective than any other because it's interactive. So when you're playing an experience and, the music swells and it's an emotional scene and the music is just highlighting that to 1,000 times what you'd be experiencing if there was no music, it just like, it burns into your memory. It has a greater effect than when you're watching an actor play out a story that you had no part in, right?
Yeah. For us, for sure.
For us, yeah. For me. Yes, this is all my personal experience. Yeah, for sure.
My experience too. That amount of time you spend with it is a good note also. Like it would take like, I'm trying to do the math. It would take like 4 complete watches of the Lord of the Rings extended trilogy to equal 1 Final Fantasy VII.
Right.
Yeah.
Or more.
That's funny. When you said the time you spent with it, the first thing I thought of was the Final Fantasy VII battle music.
Yeah. The amount of times you're going to hear that song compared to the amount of times you're going to hear Concerning Hobbits or something like that. So the amount of time definitely helps. And the amount of times I heard the first or that 45-second supercut of Police Truck playing Tony Hawk 1, I'm sure that helped. Yeah. John, what would you say?
Just a ginormous ditto. Ryan pretty much said everything in a more immaculate way than I could have. I guess really all
I've been called many things. Immaculate's not one of them. Till today.
Until now.
Yeah.
No, I think for me, it's like, I would argue that maybe I'm the only weirdo that did this, but I would say after like the first 3 months of playing Tony Hawk 1, 2, or even like Madden, any of these games, like the ability to turn down all of the in-game audio to 0 and then turn the sound effects and the music up, or maybe just the music up. I started doing that. Like, I don't need to hear myself falling off a skateboard or grinding or whatever in Tony Hawk. Like, I just wanted to vibe with the music, and the music could elicit a variety of emotions, and I could just, vibe with it however I wanted to in these games was really big. I think like adrenaline, testosterone, all these things kind of play a part into it. So, like, I spent a lot of time playing sports as a kid, and nothing was cooler than getting hyped up before the game in the locker room, playing, Metallica or whatever the hell, was the song of the day or whatever, just to get you pumped, get you, like, let's fucking go, I don't know. Those songs at those times were just fun, and it's the way that they can elicit emotions, like Ryan was saying, is powerful, man. And like I said earlier, you're just a sponge. You soak all that stuff in,
Yeah. I think one of the things I'm taking away from this, because I think it was going to be a really obvious conclusion that, like, the time and the age you are when you play these games affects how easily you take that stuff in. But I think one of the things I'm coming away from this with is, I think that if you really love video games, there's something about, like, the connection that you can make with a video game that other media just can't provide through no real faults of their own. It's just, interactivity versus non-interactivity. And I think that like time to form that connection gets lowered once you're a part of the process, whether it's, playing Tony Hawk or, doing training camp in Madden or playing The Last of Us, and you hear those, those accompaniments, and those just become a part of you quicker. And then video games are so much longer than other media. You spend more time with those songs also. So they, it's like a double, like a pincer attack on your music taste. Just, we're going to worm our way in there, and it's going to become a part of you from now on. So I think that you guys covered a lot of the stuff, the takeaways, but I think that video games, if you really love them, or in the very special case of Guitar Hero and Rock Band, or other, very low barrier to entry games, like, the block you would have had to, like, accept new music gets lowered even further when you can just, when you can play it in the thing. You might not have been predisposed to love Disturbed or something like that. Or Slipknot, in my case. Slipknot was another one I got introduced to because they were in Guitar Hero 3. And before that, I was like, Slipknot? No fucking way. But I played that one song in Guitar Hero, and again, I was like, oh, Dave, you were wrong. You were so wrong. And all it took was, like, playing that song a couple times as a person who plays an instrument. I'd be like, wow, they're really good at this. Look at that. And then it's history from there. So lots of ways that I think video games can break down the barrier, or at least get it down faster than other media, is, I think, where I'm going to land on this.
Yeah. It's the audio and visual plus the interactivity. Like, it's all three.
Yeah. I think if we did a podcast about why can you connect to a video game story more than a movie, if that's how you guys feel, that's how I feel. The takeaway would be the same as what you just said, John. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no surprise that music is part of that too.
100%.
Yeah. So let's clean up the rest of the community responses. We've got a bunch of miscellaneous ones that didn't fit neatly into the categories. So we'll run through these, and there's a lot of good music here too. So I'll get us started once again with Brian, who's a patron from the Pixelated Playgrounds podcast. Lots of plosives in that. Thank you, Brian. Brian says, not only learned what Japanese city pop was, but also learned that I quite enjoyed it during my playthrough of Paradise Killer, which is another awesome soundtrack. That's another game where it's like, the game itself is fine. The soundtrack is really fucking good. And I did take that outside of the game and listen to it on my own time.
Nice. All right, I'll take Doug, who's a patron. Thank you, Doug, from the Nostalgium Arcanum podcast. Did I say that right? I'm so bad. Okay, see, look at that. Nailed it. This is a broad answer, but I know coming up in the 80s and the 8 and 16-bit eras have given me an outsized appreciation for chiptunes. Let's go, Doug.
Mm-hmm.
And synth. Oh, this guy is my man. It also means I put a premium on catchy melodies over just about any other aspect of music. Yeah.
Absolutely.
This guy gets it for sure.
Next, we have Jake. He is a patron from the Pre-Order Bonus podcast. He says, Alan Wake 1 and 2, Poets of the Fall, Old Gods of Asgard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good.
There's
picks.
some moments in Alan Wake 2 with Old Gods of Asgard that are just, it's good music. It's very good music. It hits right.
Yeah.
Hits right.
And Control. Same band. Yeah. Next, we have Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon, who's a patron from the Fun and Games podcast, among many other podcasts.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. Matt says, well, shit. I have no idea where to even begin with this. Music in video games has been absolutely influential to my taste. I am a huge music nerd to start. My love of acid jazz is for sure connected to Persona 5 Royal. I've gotten into countless bands and genres just from their appearances in games like Guitar Hero, Rock Band, and Fuser. That's another one I heard is really fun, Fuser. While I loved heavy metal from a pretty young age, games like Doom absolutely expanded that for sure. As far as specific bands go, the most recent example I can think of is the incredible soundtrack from Life is Strange: True Colors, introducing me to musicians like Novo Amor, Cyrus Reynolds, and Bell Saint, in all caps. So I had to emphasize Bell Saint. I'm sure there's much more, but this is what came at the top of my mind. Thank you, Matt. The Persona 5 soundtrack was an instant like, oh, you're going to listen to this like all day for a while. That's great. Yeah.
So kind of tangentially related to Life is Strange: True Colors, it made me, for some reason, think of Death Stranding. It's a game I didn't expect to enjoy the soundtrack. It only has like a few bands highlighted and multiple songs from those bands. But man, like it hits at the right time.
Yeah, because that's a game with no music for most of it. And then
most
like
of it. Yeah.
when you like crest over a hill, a song will come in, and it's like it's a moment when music enters in that game.
Yeah, and the music fits the vibe so well every time. It's really well done. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So the next entry here comes from Dog Nozzle, who's a patron. Thank you, Dog Nozzle. I remember being a teenager and hearing classic 70s prog rock for the first time and thinking, whoa, this sounds like video game music. In retrospect, I was probably thinking of Uematsu, but I didn't know who he was at the time.
Yeah. Dancing Mad does some stuff. It goes some places.
Yeah.
Next, we have this Chimera from the Game Over Hell on YouTube. He echoes kind of some of Matt, aka Stormageddon stuff. He says, I can safely say Persona 5 got me into acid jazz.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah. I think this is something that like, and we maybe touched on with like Guitar Hero and Rock Band, but there's a lot of video games that do not like orchestrations, but it's also not licensed music. It's like, established genres, but it's just using that to accompany the game, like Persona 5 and other Persona soundtracks I've dabbled in too.
Jedi Fallen Order had the Mongolian band called The Who, did that like throat singing song at the beginning. You remember? That was pretty fun.
Yeah. So like giving you an entry point into whole genres, but like not like chiptunes or, orchestrated soundtracks. It's just like existing genres of music that maybe you wouldn't have heard before.
Yeah.
Super cool. Next up is Ozzy. Ozzy is part of the ongoing King of Games 1996 project over on Retro Hangover. By the time you hear this episode, that will be coming soon to their public feed, which is a tournament where they pit the best games from 1996 up against each other. I'm also a part of that tournament, so you can go check that out and hear who's going to be crowned the King of Games in 1996. So once again, Ozzy's a part of that. Great guy. Ozzy says, great topic. There are many instances of game music shaping my interest. Vice City got me to appreciate the 80s and its music. The licensed soundtracks in many games got me to listen to new songs that I would have otherwise not listened to. Games serve as a great gateway to genres, and I hope it continues to be the case, with a good balance between original music and licensed soundtracks that perfectly accompany the title. Thank you, Ozzy.
Yeah, Ozzy just summed up this entire episode, I think.
That's
that
right.
was great.
Pretty much, yeah.
We could have just had Ozzy record 15 seconds.
Right?
Do this ad read for us.
Yeah.
So the next response comes from Dre from the Fine Time podcast. What's up, Dre? He says, I don't think video games really shaped my taste so much as confirmed them. I already pretty much liked all genres of music as it was, and video games were an extension of that because you're liable to hear any type of music in a game. Maybe it's a bit different for me coming from the chiptune era, where it was much harder to depict the type of music you were going for, but that didn't stop early 80s arcade games from pulling a lot from blues and ragtime, for instance.
Yeah.
But video games haven't made me like the few genres I already don't enjoy, such as country or orchestrated movie score types of soundtracks. That stuff I will always pass on in real life or in games.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know what you like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And if I know anything about Dre, he knows what he likes.
He does. Absolutely.
Next, we have Michael from Bits of Time, a more recent development getting into a bit of J-pop because of The World Ends With You and Persona 4 and 5. I wouldn't normally tune into anything of the sort, but I'm more open to the idea now. And another one, the ending of Mass Effect 1 plays a song from Fonts. I've listened to their work many times since then, and that somehow, through algorithms, led me to find the awesome EP In Silence We Yearn by Oh Hiroshima. Great freaking album. I know what I'm listening to tonight.
Hell yeah. Just maybe sometimes broadening your horizons, but sometimes just as a discovery tool for a new band that you never heard of, you end up loving. And yeah, maybe some catchy J-pop songs too. Like I just played Final Fantasy X too, and I've had some of those songs stuck in my head for a while.
Yuna's first song on there.
Yep. What can I do for you? I know. All right. And the last one here is Artful Scruff. They say, no, I don't think video games have influenced my musical taste. I certainly don't recall ever getting into a band or artist specifically because they were featured in a video game. Not off the top of my head anyway. But perhaps certain things like Final Fantasy X's Otherworld spring to mind that kind of gave me a nudge in a direction I was already leaning. Which is true, yeah. Otherworld is a very special song. But yeah, if you are already kind of like, I kind of like this thing, and then a song in a game you like, or just a song you like, pushes you over the edge, like you said.
Artful Scruff gets like an extra bonus point from me for name dropping the best Final Fantasy game, which is 10. I said it.
Handshake. All right, cool.
No
well,
comment.
That is all of the listener submissions for this episode. I appreciate everybody who did that. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, hey, how can I get in on this action? You can do that by joining the Discord server, where I always put out the call for submissions for topic episodes in the Tales from the Backlog collaboration channel. So there's an invite link down in the show notes where you can join the Discord server. In addition to being a place where you can participate in episodes, it's also a fantastic community that I'm very proud of, with a bunch of cool people, with good conversations about games, movies, life, pets, food, all kinds of stuff. So again, there's an invite link down in the episode description. Feel free to join. We would love to have you. So when we wrap up this episode here, I want to first give you guys the chance to do some plugs. So Ryan, I will kick it to you. Tell the fine folks about List Off.
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Ryan, and I'm historically bad at this, plugging my show. It's a podcast, and we used to do lists, hence the name. Now we just do gaming news on a weekly basis, and it's kind of, we talk about the bigger news stories and what we've been playing, and we delve into news stories that interest us. So, you know how to find podcasts. I'm sure you could find List Off with Brian and Ryan, and I hope you do end up giving us a chance.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a great show.
Yeah, definitely recommended. Brian was on this show before. I got a rare Brian guest appearance.
Very
on here
rare.
with
Yeah.
Brian and Ryan. We did the Death's Door episode together. And then Ryan's been on the show many times before about Catherine, about God of War Ragnarok, and Elden Ring, the number one
blockbusters, yeah.
most downloaded episode of Tales from the Backlog. All because of Ryan here.
Because of yeah, right.
It's the beard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because you can hear it.
Yeah,
They can hear it.
people listen. They're like, I bet that guy's got a great beard.
That guy's got an awesome beard.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I was a guest on List Off way back when, back in the list era of the show. We did top Metroidvanias, and that was
we did.
Good fun time.
It's one of those lists I would love a chance to redo, actually.
Oh, yeah. Every year we get like 5 to 10 great new Metroidvanias.
I know. I would definitely change what was on my list, though, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, Video Game Lounge is has ridden off into the sunset. But as I did for Ryan, when we thought List Off was over, tell everybody about the show and what they can expect if they go looking for it.
So Video Game Lounge podcast was a podcast I started with a couple buddies of mine. The idea behind it, our little tagline I came up with was the show not here for notes and news, but to talk games and drink brews. So we asked 2 questions every episode: what you playing and what you drinking. And it was good. We had a good run, but sadly the doors of the lounge have closed. We won't have a miraculous comeback like List Off. But there may or may not be another project slowly in the works. We'll see. I have fear of failure, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, you can go find our old show, Video Game Lounge. Ryan was on my show a couple of times. We also did God of War Ragnarok, spoiler cast, and we did Uncharted Lost Legacy, the best Uncharted game, which was a fun episode. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I recommend that people check out both shows, and they can find links down in the show notes for both of them. And keep your eyes peeled. Maybe John's got something on the horizon. I'm looking forward to it if it comes together.
Yeah. We'll see. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. So for this show, I already talked about the Discord server. We'd love to have you join. I would also love if people left a rating and or review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Podcast Addict. That's very helpful. I'm not sure what search terms people are searching for that would lead them to find this episode, but it would help them find the game-specific episodes for sure. So that would be great. Also, if you leave a rating and review, I'll give my dog a blueberry. He loves blueberries, so don't let Rookie down. He's a good boy. And I also do another podcast called A Top 3 Podcast, where we do top 3 lists, and we recently started drafting weird stuff. That has been a very chaotic and fun time. So
great episodes.
Thank you. We have a lot of fun doing those. So there's also a link down in the show notes for a top 3 podcast. And then finally, if you would like to support the show monetarily, you can do that at patreon.com/realdavejackson, where you can get some treats. You can vote for what games I do on the show. There's bonus episodes and other perks as the tiers increase. So with all of that being said, Ryan and John, thank you guys for coming on. This has been awesome. I was looking forward to this discussion. Didn't really know where it would take us, but this has been great.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, man. And John, you're still my nemesis, but I appreciate you a lot more now. No, I'm kidding. You guys are both great.
Nemesis.
I'm staying in character, John. Don't.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Get fucked, Ryan.
No, this has been great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Again, ditto. I echo Ryan's thoughts there. Thanks for having me on, Dave. This was great. I'm glad, this started as a conversation on Discord. Yeah. Really, like Dave and I were going back and forth for what felt like half an hour. And he was like, you know what? This should be a podcast episode.
Yeah,
I was like, well, fuck it. I'm down.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was great. So yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you guys again, and we'll sign off now. Thank you everybody for listening. I appreciate everyone who listens to the end, and tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.